Good morning, everyone. It's a very pleasant morning. I have a colleague here who came in from Bangalore and he was surprised that it's quite warm considering it's the last day of January, right? So I told him, yeah, welcome to Delhi, where the patterns are changing. Healthcare is something that's, I think, very close to all our hearts, right? And a relationship with a doctor is a love-hate relationship, right? You only love the doctor when you really need to go get health checkups done. Otherwise, all of us want to stay away from a clinic, from a diagnostic test, from a doctor, etc., right? But once we are in that process, I think we are extremely particular about how the recovery process goes. So I'm here to talk about how can we drive patient experience. All of you would have heard of the term RX, and here I'm to talk about how can we move from RX to PX, right? And that's the whole focus that we have. I'll quickly start with a personal story, right? And this is something that really woke me up to the potential that exists in improving patient experience in the healthcare industry, right? So I called up a hospital. I was unwell. I was weak. I wasn't really that critical for me to get healthcare. And I called up and booked an appointment. Can you fix this, guys? And after I had booked my appointment, I got a reminder call. So I called on a Thursday, took an appointment for Saturday. On Friday, I got a reminder call saying, "Sir, आपका कल appointment है. Will you be there at 11 a.m.?" I said, "Absolutely, I'll be there." Unfortunately, I had a late night. So I didn't land up at the hospital the next day. Again, feeling weak, not really an emergency. If I'd broken a bone, if I had fever, I'm sure I would have landed up on Thursday itself. Right? The doctor's slot may possibly have been open. The doctor could have packed in 20 patients in an hour or maybe 2 hours, but there was one slot extra, so maybe an walk-in patient got service because of that, but the slot was open. Again, what happened was I booked again, and this time what I did was I said, hey, let me book it through an app. So I booked it for the next weekend. I booked it through an app. My surname says Agrawal, 10% discount. I paid online, right? I took advantage of the 10% discount. Wasn't a large amount, $200, but why not? Again, the day before, I get a reminder call. And it was interesting because my point was, I paid the money. If I'm not going to land up, I'm 100% sure I'll call and say, sorry, I'm not landing up, because this time I paid the money, right? I had paid $1,800. At the hospital, when I reached there, and I walked straight into the doctor's room, and I was told, hold on, you have to get a printout of the invoice. Now, there's a legit reason for that. They wanted a printout of the invoice because they needed to write my vital parameters on that invoice, right? BP, weight, etc., for the doctor's records. I had to go back to the billing counter. So anyways, I had to go back to the billing counter, right? Even though I had paid upfront. And they gave me a printed receipt. Post the diagnosis, I said, hey, since I'm here, let me just pick up the medicines I need to. I walked to the hospital pharmacy, picked up the medicines and left. Now I'm in the car with a driver. I would have left about 10 minutes ago. I get a call. Sir, the doctor just prescribed these medicines for you. They are available in our pharmacy. Would you be okay if we send them home and we'll give you free delivery? I'm like, guys, I picked it up from your pharmacy. Why are you wasting time and effort calling me? I picked it up from your hospital, right? Unfortunately, I answered. It was an unknown number. I stay in Gurgaon. It was a 0124 number. I answered. I didn't know who was calling. Maybe because I was alone in the car, I had nothing else on my mind. I answered the call. Then what happened? The doctor, by the way, also shared a clinic number. Said, if you have an emergency, please call me at this number. You can call me off patient hours also, because she is available from 10 to 2 in the hospital. Okay, that's also what happened. And since the doctor was effective, my weakness levels went down. Next time I had to go, I just called her at the clinic. I had more flexibility on the time slots I could get with the doctor, right? What happened here, right? 3 things. The journeys were siloed, and I'll talk about it in the next slide. The patient experience and the revenue loss, and I'll talk about it in this slide actually. So there's an agent, a human agent, to service my call. Our experience has been that it takes about 25 to 30 rupees to service a call, right? Cost. The agent called again to reconfirm. Cost, right? I didn't go. Possibly there was a slot that may have gotten wasted. Possibly, though I know doctors are extremely busy. Unfortunately, our health standards are not where they need to be. So doctors are extremely busy. Sorry. Now, when I was doing the app, I had to get an OTP. I had to enter my information. I had to possibly register, etc., etc. It was the first time I was going to that hospital. I don't need to hopefully do it again after that, but I had to go through that process. Again, the agent reconfirmed. But remember, this time I had paid. There was no real need to reconfirm. I would have been the one following up if I had to change the appointment because I don't want to lose money. And there was an unnecessary cost in terms of the invoice that needed to be printed just to write my levels, because what the doctor did finally was he put that information into the computer and printed out the prescription and gave it to me. So the information did stay in the records of the hospital and the doctor. Now, I also bought the medicine, the pharmacy, I've spoken about it, but the pharmacy did not know that I'd bought them from that same pharmacy. So there's a person calling me, again, waste of money and cost. Plus, in a way, it's also intrusive, right? The person at the pharmacy had called me from a landline number, but I'm sure he had to key in the number. So he or she, therefore, had access to my mobile number. And with DPDP coming in, I'm sure that's becoming a huge challenge. The healthcare industry is anyway is very well regulated. There are multiple nuances around it. I'm sure everyone would be wondering how to deal with it, right? Again, the doctor did give me her number. She also therefore had access to my number on WhatsApp. I'm sure in our lives we have gone through consultations on a video call with a doctor, and sometimes the app doesn't work for the hospital. Doctor says, call me on WhatsApp. Again, it's convenient for the patient, but there is a privacy angle that comes in the process, right? And eventually, when I started not going to the hospital, but going to the doctor directly, there was a gap that emerged in terms of the hospital losing possible revenue. And luckily, it was just weakness. I had to get on some vitamins, but if it was something major, there could have been a huge loss in terms of the revenue. And there's some statistics I have later on. By the way, I'm very happy they wired me up this way. It gives me the experience of being a call center agent, right? This thing coming in the front, right? Now, a patient journey is extremely complex, right? The patient may go through an IPD, may go through an OPD. There are multiple hops that happen. Now, I'm sure a lot of hospitals, a lot of healthcare providers are working to solve that problem. But there are so many hops. And imagine if I was seriously unwell, my wife couldn't come with me, I had gone alone. Walking around a hospital, these are large hospitals, it's quite painful. You have to go to one section to get the test done, you have to go another section to do the billing, and you're walking up and down the hospital. By that time, anyways, you are so unwell that you need lots of healthcare. Maybe you become an IPD, right? You're going to become an IP patient, right? But there's one thing that matters. When I'm a patient, what matters is I go into the hospital and I get out well recovered. Everything internally in the process that follows is something that the hospital requires. The patient is not interested in that journey. And that's where the challenges arise, right? I want to go in, quickly get me the treatment. I'm happy to pay whichever way. Make it as simple as possible for me. And I walk out well recovered. That's the journey that every one of us, when we become a patient, want. But there are multiple layers to it, right? And in our experience, and we work with multiple healthcare providers, we work with diagnostic labs, we work with pharmacy firms, we work with large multi-location, chains of hospitals. There are lots of silos that we have seen. And the specific example that I used is based on personal experience that I went through myself. And because I wasn't so unwell, I found it amusing. But if I was unwell, I would have been really aghast, and I would, I'm sure, lost my cool and yelled at someone or wanted someone to walk up and down and do all the billing for me that was needed, right? Now, the point is, PX is everything, right? And anyways, unfortunately, the healthcare industry is subject to a lot of suspicion. Is this really what they're trying to do? For major illnesses, a lot of us go and get a second opinion. And often the second opinion, the doctor will say, oh, you already taken a first opinion. Why are you coming back to me again? Because they may also know each other. You never know that. So it's extremely critical that a patient walks out recovered and happy. And the journey is also very seamless, right? As an example, one of the things that my wife really likes is a doctor's bedside manner, right? She is very, very focused on that. How is the doctor engaging and speaking and explaining what the ailment is and what the treatment associated to cure that ailment is, right? And a lot of doctors are not like that, which is, in my view, it's absolutely okay. As long as I don't take 5 days to recover, I take 3 days to recover with the appropriate medicine, not necessarily the strongest medicine possible, right? But this does result in, and this is a study that we have, this does result in about 15% drop in revenues, or patient experience because of this. Right? And again, it's also a question of revenue. Finally, any healthcare provider is a commercial establishment, and they have to strike the balance between ensuring that the patients get treated well, but they also make the right amount of revenues associated with that, right? And this is India data. While they say it in dollars, this is India data. And the average that they found out was that for every loss of every patient who did not get a great experience, there's a loss of about 17,000 rupees. Hopefully it will remain at that, but with the dollar exchange rate changing, it may go up higher also. But right now, $200 is what they are saying, right? And it's a huge impact in terms of what could possibly happen. What we have been doing is we've been trying to set a context from an AI-led perspective, right? And the organization we are working with this is what we're trying to drive. The font at the bottom is a little small and a little off color on this screen, but typically when we go meet a doctor, we would either call up a hospital, typically the closest hospital, and say, hey, we need to consult a doctor who's the HOD for medicine or who's the HOD for orthopedics, right? That's what we would do. Or we would reach out to a friends group and someone would recommend saying, please go to this doctor, please go to this doctor. He or she is the best that you can go to, right? That's typically what happens. What we have started to now do, at least for an appointment booking, is for a lot of our clients, is book it through a GenAI based voice bot. Because appointment booking is very easy as long as it's linked to the scheduling that exists. I can call up and say, I need to consult with a doctor in this department. I can get options that will be thrown at me. I can respond to that on a voice bot or even a chat bot and get the appointment booked. By the way, it's interesting. A lot of people now, and I'm sure those of you who have kids who are hitting their teenage years, they don't want to talk to you, right? They prefer chatting, right? And if you call them up, they will say, why are you calling me up? My son does that with me, by the way. He's only 11. He said, why are you calling me? I'm listening to music. Let's chat. I don't want my music to be disturbed. I would prefer to chat with you, right? So this is something that can work very well in terms of how this could be driven. The other part is you could also allow automated appointment reminders before the day. So it's very easy to send out a message. It's a one-way notification. Or it's also very easy to just make a voice bot call and say, sir, your appointment is tomorrow at 11 a.m. Please be on time. If you want to change the slot, please say yes, no. In a chat, you can do similarly. It can be menu-based. It can be GenAI-based, which is completely interactive without any menu, and you could drive that. So the patient could also reschedule, the patient could confirm, whichever way. But you're removing the cost of that agent who was doing a reminder, who was doing a follow-up, etc., etc. Now, with some of the mechanisms, you can even have a link sent out to the patient and the patient can make a payment through UPI. India has done a great job on UPI. A payment can be done. So everything is closed without any human intervention, right? And by the way, we've spoken to a lot of organizations that provide customer service care. No one wants to have this on the face. The person who's a customer service agent hates that job. Okay, that's the reality today. So if you can either enrich their job or make it easier for them to service customers, it becomes a lot more powerful. And if that process is seamless, if the patient has rescheduled the appointment, the doctor can also get an update. Automatically that slot opens up. If there's someone else who had reached out, the slots can be realigned. A lot of things can be done on those lines. The other part that is also being played, and we've been speaking to a lot of healthcare providers, and this is something that is definitely happening, which is where how can you use better healthcare management systems to store patient information effectively, right? And ensure that that is available to subsequent doctors who come in. That history, I know India is trying to drive the whole program around how can that history be available across hospitals. It's a little way off because of multiple complexities around how data will flow between different hospital entities. Is there consent available from the patient, etc., etc.? But that's something also that could really make a difference. However, there are challenges around this, right? The DPTP guidelines today are extremely strict and tight in terms of what information is available, how can calls be made, and the fiduciary responsibilities are fairly stringent. So if, for example, and I'm digressing a little bit, but I know of a chain of wellness centers who often complain. They say that we'll set up a wellness center, let's say in Mayur Vihar. And after 2 years, the person who's running that wellness center will branch out on their own, create their own wellness center, and take away the whole patient database that they had in their wellness center. And that becomes a huge challenge. It's a loss of revenue for that chain. But more importantly, because they now know the catchment area, Mayur Vihar, they can easily set up something a few meters away and actually take away patients from them. And it's the relationship that matters a lot more. So this is again a violation of privacy, because I don't want someone unknown to be calling me. But in this case, this person was known. But I was actually establishing a relationship with XYZ, the chain, not that individual ABC. And that's something that becomes a huge challenge. ये मूव नहीं कर रहा. नेक्स्ट स्लाइड कर लीजिए. Now it's gone back a little bit. So this is something that we have been able to do very well. We have created a customer automation platform that helps you drive this very well. By the way, while in multiple industries there is conversation of how humans can be replaced, thankfully in the healthcare industry for now, because of the regulations, there cannot be a bot that will give me consulting advice on what I can do. Of course, there are lots of us who first thing that we do is go to Google, search, look at WebMD, and believe that we become a good enough doctor. And then we go to a doctor and say, ये दिक्कत है, sir देखिए क्या करना है, ये madam देखिए क्या करना है, medicines दीजिए. Very dangerous, right? Because there are nuances that we don't understand as individuals, and we could make the situation even worse. So personally, I don't think there's going to be a GenAI bot that can come in, but there could be a lot of other things that could be done. So for example, appointment booking is an easy one. The other one is medicine reminders. So I'm on some vitamin which I have to take once a month. I forget. I put it in my calendar, but I still forget to take that medicine because the calendar pops up, I dismiss it, and I go on with my life as normal because it's not a pressing need for me to take that vitamin. Now, if there was a reminder that can go out either via message and I can acknowledge and say that, hey, I've taken that medicine, it works well. India is the diabetes capital of the world, right? Everyone says that. My wife is diabetic. She has a sensor that she needs to install and it needs to be replaced every 15 days. The pharmacy that we bought it from calls her when we had bought two, and they called her in about 28 days and they called from their number. So they had her number. Anyways, they would have it because they put in the system, but they actually called up from a mobile number and said, ma'am, आपका expire हो रहा है, आपको extra sensors भेज दें क्या? In my view, that's a violation of privacy. They should not have been able to call her directly, but they could have triggered it off as whatever that pharmacy was, anonymously send her a WhatsApp and said, can we send you the new set of sensors that you could use, right? This can simplify things a lot more. The point here is, can a lot of these things be done where we can have a human in the loop? There can be agentic AI that is engaging with the patients, and they can be providing basic information, basic engagement, and there can be a human monitoring them and improving the quality of service or the quality of patient care that is being provided at that time. These are some use cases that we have. There in one of the hospitals, and this is a leading chain, we haven't yet been able to get the case study out with them, but they installed voice bots. They worked with us to be able to answer a lot of patient queries, and that actually brought down average handling time. One of the things that we are now working with them is, can the voice bot have an initial conversation, get the information from the patient, and then they transfer it to a human who can then interact and close and take a decision, right? This could be done for appointment bookings. It could be done for what kind of diagnostic tests need to be done. Or it could even be done for a doctor coming in who's gathered the basic information, so the doctor gets more time to actually spend and provide treatment rather than gathering vital information, right? Similarly, so this is the challenge I have faced, at least with diagnostic labs. The doctor will write something saying, please get this test done. I will go to the app, I'll try to enter them, and there'll be one or two tests that are definitely not there in the standard menu that exists. And I have to therefore go and call up someone. And then I'll be in the queue. I will then get to speak to someone. I'll explain the test, and then that whole package will get configured and I'll pay for it. We were able to actually use a WhatsApp bot where we were able to scan that image, put it across on the bot. It was processed through optical character recognition at the back end, and an appropriate test was prescribed for the patient, made it a lot easier for them to be able to do this. And then, of course, the last part is in terms of telemedicine. A client that we work with, fairly large in India, works with a lot of clients globally. They use voice bots again to be able to push patients to take their medicines on time. And they found that the efficacy or the effectiveness of sending out reminders till the patient acknowledged and said medicine taken turned out to be much higher, which means they were able to provide a better patient experience in the process. So just to summarize, this is what Exotel does. By the way, just to give you a perspective, India's population is 140 crores. Exotel does 100 crore voice calls a month. If you have booked an Uber or a Blue Smart, which I did today, if you've ordered food of Zomato or Swiggy, if you've ordered stuff from some of the larger e-commerce sites in the country, if you have booked an automobile and you are using that automobile and you need to do the service center, Exotel carries Thank you. Exotel carries all of that voice for those clients. So it's 100 crore calls on a monthly basis. We have touched more than 35% of the country's population through our solutions. And in addition to that, we do 100 crore digital conversations, which is WhatsApp, chat, etc., across. So we do about 200 crores of conversations, engagement with customers every month. Right? So what we do here is we are able to provide at the best layer a communication platform, which is how the engagement between a customer and a service provider happens. We are able to provide the contact center layer, and then using Gen AI, we are able to establish a much better context, which ensures that when someone comes on the call, they immediately know that the patient is Angira. These were his last queries. This was the appointment he or she had booked 2 days ago, and this is how that query could be serviced. Right? A lot of clients that we have in the healthcare space, we continue to work with them, personally driven by the fact that there could be a huge impact we could make in the healthcare space by improving patient care. Again, the elements in between, from the point of time I believe I need to get diagnosed for some ailment that I have versus when I get cured completely, all the elements in between could seamlessly be taken care of by what Exotel does. That's it. We have a booth outside. Look forward to seeing you there. Happy to answer any specific queries that any of you may have. Thank you so much for your patient listening. Thank you.